In a world where our minds race like a whirlwind, have you ever felt paralyzed by your own thoughts? Imagine standing at a crossroad, burdened by worries that seem insurmountable. Each decision feels like a mountain, each moment stretching into an eternity of doubt. What if I told you that this struggle is more common than you think? As I navigated my own journey through anxiety, I stumbled upon powerful truths that transformed my perspective. Those moments when my mind spiraled into chaos became opportunities for growth. Have you ever considered that the very thoughts that hold us captive could be the key to our freedom? Picture this. You're surrounded by the weight of unending questions, yet just beyond the fog lies a path illuminated by faith. With every step, I learned to silence the noise and embrace a peace that surpasses understanding. What if the key to overcoming overthinking lies not in the answers we seek, but in the questions we dare to ask? As we dive deeper, I invite you to discover how surrendering our thoughts can lead us to a life of purpose and clarity. Are you ready to unlock the door to a calmer mind? Let's take this journey together. Understanding overthinking. You know, overthinking is something that I've grappled with for a long time. It's like being stuck in a mental loop where every little thing gets magnified. When I say overthinking, I'm referring to that incessant cycle of thoughts that keep circling in my head, often leading to unnecessary worry or self-doubt. It's not just about thinking things through. It's about getting trapped in a maze of possibilities, scenarios, and what-ifs that never seem to end. It can be exhausting, and honestly, it feels like a never-ending conversation with myself that I just can't escape. Identifying the patterns of overthinking is crucial. I've found that it usually starts with a simple concern or question. Maybe it's a decision I have to make, like whether to take a new job or how to approach a difficult conversation with a friend. What starts as a straightforward thought quickly spirals out of control. I begin to consider every possible outcome, replay past experiences, and analyze every angle until my head feels like it's about to explode. The key for me has been to recognize this pattern early, before it snowballs into something much larger and more burdensome. There are so many factors that contribute to overthinking. Sometimes it's rooted in fear of failure, fear of judgment, or even fear of success. Other times, it's about perfectionism. I want everything to be just right, and that pressure can make me second-guess every decision I make. I've also noticed that my environment plays a role. High-stress situations, like work deadlines or personal conflicts, can trigger my overthinking tendencies. It's a mix of internal and external factors that create a perfect storm for my mind to go into overdrive. The realization that I'm not alone in this struggle has been comforting. Many people deal with overthinking, and it often manifests in similar ways. By sharing experiences with friends or reading about others' journeys, I've learned that understanding this phenomenon is the first step towards overcoming it. It's a shared human experience, and talking about it helps me feel a bit lighter, as if I'm not carrying the weight of my thoughts all by myself. What I've come to appreciate about overthinking, oddly enough, is that it can be a double-edged sword. While it can lead to anxiety and paralysis, it also shows how deeply I care about my decisions and their impacts. It's important to acknowledge this aspect and use it to fuel positive action rather than let it drown me in negativity. Recognizing when my thoughts are serving me and when they're just dragging me down has been a game changer in my journey to manage overthinking. Impact of overthinking on mental health. Overthinking can be a silent thief of peace and joy. I've experienced firsthand how it can contribute to feelings of anxiety. When my mind is racing, it feels like I'm constantly in a state of alert, as if I'm preparing for some invisible threat. It's unsettling, to say the least. I've noticed that the more I overthink, the more anxious I become, leading to a vicious cycle that's hard to break. My heart races, I feel restless, and even basic tasks can seem overwhelming because I'm caught in my head rather than focusing on the moment. The connection between overthinking and mental health is something I've come to recognize as a significant issue. For me, it's not just about feeling anxious, it's about how that anxiety seeps into every corner of my life. It affects my sleep, my relationships, and even my physical health. I've found myself lying awake at night, replaying conversations, and worrying about things that haven't even happened yet. The toll it takes on my well-being can be profound, sometimes leaving me feeling drained and defeated. Moreover, the impact of overthinking isn't just limited to anxiety. It can lead to other conditions, such as depression. When I'm stuck in my thoughts, I often find myself spiraling into negativity. It's like a dark cloud that hovers over my mind, making it difficult to see the bright side of things. I can become so consumed by my worries that I start to lose interest in activities I once enjoyed. It's a slippery slope that can lead to loneliness and despair if I don't actively work to pull myself out of it. To combat these feelings, I've had to become more proactive about my mental health. Understanding the link between my thoughts and emotions has been enlightening. I've learned that when I feel the urge to overthink, it's essential to take a step back and evaluate the situation. Am I making assumptions? Am I catastrophizing? This awareness has helped me regain some control over my thoughts and reduce the intensity of my anxiety. It's essential to prioritize self-care and seek support from others. I've found that talking about my feelings with trusted friends or family can create a safe space to explore my thoughts without judgment. This connection not only alleviates some of the burdens I carry, but also reminds me that I'm not alone in my struggles. The more open I am about my overthinking, the more I realize that many people face similar challenges and that shared vulnerability can be incredibly healing. Christian principles to combat anxiety. As I navigate my struggles with overthinking and anxiety, I've found solace in my faith. The teachings from the Bible have provided me with a framework to address my worries and fears. Verses like Philippians 4:6-7 resonate deeply with me, encouraging me not to be anxious about anything, but to present my requests to God with thanksgiving. It's a reminder that I'm not meant to carry my burdens alone, and that I can find peace through prayer and trust in God's plan. Another verse that has been particularly comforting is Matthew 6:25-34, where Jesus speaks about not worrying about tomorrow. This message hits home for me, especially when I find myself spiraling into thoughts about the future. It's a gentle nudge to focus on the present, to trust that God is in control, and to take life one day at a time. This perspective shift has been instrumental in helping me combat the urge to overthink every little detail. Incorporating these principles into my life has been a transformative journey. I've started to make it a habit to meditate on these scriptures whenever I feel the anxiety creeping in. It's not about ignoring my feelings, but rather acknowledging them and then redirecting my focus towards God's promises. This practice has helped me cultivate a sense of peace that often eludes me when I'm caught up in my thoughts. The teachings of Jesus also remind me of the importance of community and support. I've found that engaging with my church and surrounding myself with fellow believers helps reinforce these principles. Sharing my struggles with others who understand my faith journey creates an environment where I can receive encouragement and accountability. It's comforting to know that I'm part of a larger community that values trust in God as a source of strength. Ultimately, embracing these Christian principles has allowed me to reframe my relationship with anxiety. Instead of viewing it solely as a burden, I see it as an opportunity to lean into my faith and grow spiritually. When I surrender my worries to God, I'm reminded that I can find hope and tranquility even in the midst of chaos. It's a continuous process, but each step I take towards trusting in God makes a significant difference in my mental well-being. Techniques for mindfulness and meditation. Let me tell you, mindfulness and meditation have become my go-to strategies when the chaos in my mind starts to feel overwhelming. I remember the first time I tried to meditate. I sat cross-legged in my living room, expecting some sort of enlightenment to wash over me. What actually happened was a whirlwind of thoughts racing through my head, everything from what I needed to buy at the grocery store to the email I forgot to send. But that moment of realization, how busy my mind truly was the first step toward understanding the power of being present. When I started to incorporate mindfulness into my daily routine, it felt like I was finally coming up for air. Just focusing on my breath, even for a few minutes, allowed me to hit the pause button on the relentless cycle of overthinking. I learned to observe my thoughts without judgment, which I found liberating. Instead of getting tangled up in my worries, I began to see them as clouds passing through the sky. This perspective shift was incredibly freeing, and it made me realize that I had the power to choose where to focus my attention. One of the simplest techniques I've adopted is the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding exercise. Whenever I feel my mind spiraling, I pause and look around me. I identify 5 things I can see, 4 things I can touch, 3 things I can hear, 2 things I can smell, and 1 thing I can taste. It's astonishing how this exercise pulls me back into the moment, redirecting my focus away from the endless loop of negative thoughts. It's like a reset button, and it helps create a sense of calm that I carry with me long after the exercise is done. Then there's the practice of loving kindness meditation, which has been a game changer for me. Instead of just trying to quiet the mind, this technique encourages me to send positive thoughts to myself and others. As I sit in silence, I repeat phrases like, "May I be happy, may I be healthy, may I be safe." This practice not only reduces my anxiety, but also promotes a sense of connection to those around me. When I think of friends and family during this meditation, it cultivates a warm feeling that lingers throughout my day. Incorporating these mindfulness techniques and meditation practices has made a world of difference in my life. Along with reducing my tendency to overthink, they've helped me cultivate a deeper sense of gratitude. In those quiet moments, whether I'm focusing on my breath or sending out loving thoughts, I find a clarity that makes me appreciate the present. It's a journey, and I remind myself that it's okay to have off days. What matters is that I keep coming back to the practice, just as I would to a friend who needs support. Prayer and reflection practices. Let's talk about the role of prayer in my life. I grew up in a household where prayer was a part of our routine, but it wasn't until I faced my own struggles with anxiety that I truly understood its depth. Initially, I saw prayer as just reciting a list of requests to God. But as I delved deeper, I realized it could be a conversation, a way to express my fears and frustrations while also finding solace. When I pray, it's not just about asking for help, it's also about creating a space for reflection. I often find myself talking to God about my worries and laying them out before Him, almost like placing my burdens on a table for Him to take care of. This act of surrender has become a powerful antidote to the overthinking that plagues me. I've learned that in those moments of vulnerability, I can feel a sense of peace that I can't find anywhere else. I also practice reflective journaling, which complements my prayer life beautifully. After I pray, I often sit down to write about my thoughts and feelings. I find that putting pen to paper helps me clarify what's on my mind. It's like peeling back layers of an onion, exposing the core of my anxiety. As I write down my fears, I can articulate them, and that alone often diminishes their grip on me. It's as if I'm bringing my worries into the light, allowing God to shine His truth on them. One of my favorite practices is gratitude journaling. Every evening, I take a moment to jot down 3 things I'm grateful for. This simple act shifts my focus from what's stressing me out to what's going well in my life. I can't tell you how many times I've sat down feeling overwhelmed, only to be reminded of the blessings I have. It's a small but impactful way to refocus my mind and heart toward positivity. Prayer and reflection have become intertwined in my life, serving as anchors that keep me grounded. Whether I'm whispering a prayer in a moment of anxiety or writing in my journal, these practices remind me that I'm not alone. They provide a sense of comfort that I can rely on when the waves of overthinking threaten to pull me under. Setting boundaries in thought. One of the most enlightening realizations I've had is that I can set boundaries, not just with people, but with my own thoughts. Overthinking can feel like an uncontrollable beast, but I've learned that I can train it to behave. This journey began when I started recognizing the patterns in my thinking. I realized that just because a thought pops into my mind doesn't mean I have to entertain it. I began implementing what I call thought checking. When I catch myself spiraling, I pause and ask, is this thought helpful? Is it true? And this simple questioning technique has been a game changer. It's like having a little bouncer at the door of my mind, only allowing in thoughts that serve me well. If a thought is negative or unproductive, I acknowledge it and then consciously choose to let it go. It's a practice that requires patience, but with time, I've become more adept at managing my internal dialogue. To further strengthen my boundaries, I've started using visualization techniques. When I feel a negative thought creeping in, I picture it as a balloon floating away. I imagine myself releasing it into the sky, watching it drift further and further until it's out of sight. This visualization not only makes letting go easier, but also adds an element of playfulness to the process. It's a reminder that I have the power to choose which thoughts I hold on to. Another effective method for setting boundaries in my thinking is creating a worry time. I allocate a specific time each day to sit down and think about my worries. During this time, I allow myself to fully engage with the thoughts that trouble me. But once the timer goes off, I make a conscious effort to put those thoughts aside. This practice has helped me compartmentalize my worries, allowing me to focus on the present without the weight of my anxious thoughts hovering over me. By establishing these boundaries, I've noticed a significant reduction in my overthinking. I no longer feel like a prisoner to my thoughts. Instead, I'm learning to be the master of my mental space. It's empowering to recognize that I can redirect my thinking and reclaim my peace of mind. Each day is a new opportunity to practice these techniques, and I'm committed to continuing this journey of mental clarity and focus. The importance of community and spiritual support. I can't stress enough how vital community and spiritual support are when it comes to battling overthinking and anxiety. There's something incredibly comforting about being surrounded by people who share similar beliefs and values. It's like having a safety net, a group of folks who understand where you're coming from. When I connect with my church group or friends who have similar faith, I feel a sense of belonging that can be hard to find elsewhere. It's as if we're all in this together, sharing our burdens and lifting each other up. Being part of a community gives me the opportunity to share my thoughts and struggles without the fear of judgment. We all have our moments of weakness, and talking about them can be incredibly liberating. In these settings, I've found that just knowing others face their own battles helps to minimize my own worries. It's like a weight being lifted off my shoulders when I hear someone else confess their struggles with anxiety or overthinking. It reminds me that I'm not alone in this journey. Moreover, the power of prayer within a community can't be understated. When my friends and I come together to pray for one another, it feels like we're tapping into a divine source of strength. There's something deeply reassuring about knowing that others are interceding on my behalf. It's a beautiful reminder that, while I may feel overwhelmed, there's a greater force at play. This shared spiritual practice not only enhances our individual faith, but also strengthens our bonds as a group. Support groups, whether in person or online, provide an excellent platform for sharing experiences and coping strategies. I've seen firsthand how these gatherings can foster a sense of hope. When someone shares their story of overcoming anxiety or reflects on their spiritual journey, it inspires me to keep pushing forward. It's a powerful cycle of encouragement that helps us realize that healing is possible, and we don't have to face our challenges alone. Lastly, the encouragement I receive from my community often leads me to reflect on my own faith. It pushes me to deepen my relationship with God and to trust more in His plan for my life. When I see how my friends are growing spiritually, it motivates me to do the same. Being part of a community is not just about receiving support, it's also about giving back and being a source of encouragement for others. It's a beautiful, reciprocal relationship that can profoundly impact our mental well-being. Developing spiritual resilience. Building spiritual resilience is another crucial aspect of combating overthinking and anxiety. I've realized that my faith has been a cornerstone in navigating life's ups and downs. It provides me with a framework to understand my experiences and challenges. When I face tough situations, I often turn to Scripture for guidance. The verses remind me that I'm not alone, and they encourage me to lean into my faith even when things get difficult. One of the most significant lessons I've learned is that spiritual resilience doesn't mean I'm immune to struggles. Rather, it's about how I respond to them. When I find myself spiraling into overthinking, I try to remind myself of God's promises. I reflect on times when I felt lost, but ultimately found my way through faith. This reflection helps me to cultivate a mindset of hope rather than despair, reinforcing the belief that I can face whatever challenges come my way. In my journey, I've also discovered the importance of self-care in developing resilience. Taking time to nurture my spiritual well-being, whether through prayer, meditation, or simply spending time in nature, has been invaluable. These practices create a sanctuary for my thoughts and feelings, allowing me to recharge and refocus. It's like hitting a reset button on my mind, helping me to gain perspective on my worries and anxieties. Alongside personal practices, I've found that engaging with others strengthens my spiritual resilience. Sharing my experiences and listening to others can provide insights I might not have considered. It's fascinating how a simple conversation can shift my perspective and help me see things through a different lens. This exchange of ideas and experiences fosters a sense of community and reminds me that we're all on this journey together. Finally, developing spiritual resilience is about embracing vulnerability. It's okay to admit when I'm feeling anxious or overwhelmed. In fact, acknowledging these feelings allows me to process them more effectively. By being open about my struggles, I create space for others to do the same, cultivating an atmosphere of trust and support. This vulnerability ultimately strengthens my faith as I learn to rely on God's grace in my moments of weakness. Conclusion. The importance of community and spiritual support, combined with the development of spiritual resilience, can significantly impact our ability to manage overthinking and anxiety. These elements work hand in hand, creating a robust framework that not only helps us cope, but also empowers us to thrive. The journey may not always be easy, but with faith, support, and resilience, it becomes a path of growth and transformation. As we wrap up our journey today, I want you to take a moment and reflect. How often do we find ourselves tangled in the web of overthinking? It's a trap that can lead us away from the peace God promises. Remember, in Philippians 4:6-7, we are reminded not to be anxious, but to present our requests to God. Imagine what would change in your life if you truly embraced this. What if, instead of spiraling into worry, you chose to anchor yourself in faith? Think about the power of prayer, how it can transform your thoughts and fill your heart with peace. Now, I challenge you. This week, when those anxious thoughts creep in, pause and pray. Ask God to guide your mind and heart. Will you take that step? And hey, don't forget to share your experiences in the comments below. How has prayer helped you in moments of doubt? Your story could be the spark that ignites someone else's faith. So, let's stay connected. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for more encouragement like this. Remember, you are not alone in this journey. Together, we can overcome anxiety and embrace a life filled with hope and purpose.